This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, so welcome back to the next video. So we have looked into the business analysis, planning and monitoring, and the second knowledge area, which is elicitation and collaboration. Now let's look into the third one, which is requirements, lifecycle management. When we start getting to the details, again, it looks quite intuitive, and it looks like, okay, this is something which we should definitely be following. But anyways, it's useful to make note of the process to be followed so that you'll be aware of how it can really be done in any typical SDLC based project, IT project. Okay, so for requirements lifecycle management, what is it in short? It's nothing but right from the time when your initial identification of the requirements happens, from there proceeding towards the implementation of those requirements and then validation. How do you carefully manage this entire life cycle from inception to implementation and validation? Uh, that requires few steps to be noted. So that's what will be covered in this particular knowledge area. Okay, so getting into details, how do you start from? Obviously, you start with identifying what are the basic requirements and then documenting all of those requirements. So again, coming back to our food delivery app, so you start with understanding what are the features, like you require user registration, or you need the list of the restaurants, you need the list of the menus of each and every restaurant, and order placement related requirements or payment related requirements, or sometimes you might even get into details like capturing the user reviews, assigning that star ratings to the restaurants, real time tracking of the order delivery. So all of these are the major features. So first of all, you're identifying the requirements, and obviously after having identified, by brainstorming or discussing with the stakeholders, the next thing is the documentation. Okay, so you use different documentation methods and you do it, and then you communicate back. So this might be like we are reiterating what we have captured in the elicitation area, of course, because again here you're focusing from the requirements perspective. So you identify the requirements, documented it, communicated it to the stakeholders to ensure that everyone is on the same page. Then of course from your side, you need to do a little bit of analysis. Like for example, they might have given you few initial details about how the order tracking should happen in the food delivery app. Maybe okay, you show the app screen where there is a map displayed of the customer's location and the restaurant location, and you're showing the journey as a straight line. Maybe you can put in a little bit more of your thought process, and you might say that uh, apart from just showing the route of the journey, how about showing estimated time of arrival, how much time it might take. Okay, and how about giving an option of calling the delivery agent to give proper directions, giving that option in the app. So these might be your additional uh, value adds that you create to this requirement, wherein you're doing your analysis to see how a requirement feature can be made better. You're suggesting it and getting the buy-in from the stakeholder, and then documenting those also as part of your requirements. So that will be part of your analysis. And if you remember, in the initial sessions, we discussed about requirements prioritization. When does it come into picture? So when there are way too many requirements, and the amount of time available to deliver those requirements would be limited, which happens most of the time, you need to prioritize the requirements and then find out which are the key requirements to be delivered initially. Focus on those, right? So which is going to be having the higher priority, which is going to have lesser priority, what are the key features, what are the cosmetic features, all those things will be part of your prioritization methods, which will be followed. So that again is part of your lifecycle management. After having done this, you need to have a proper traceability of the requirements. What do we mean by this? Traceability is nothing but uh, there is a specific requirement which was provided by the stakeholder. Okay, okay, there are some say 20 odd requirements which were given by the stakeholder, and then you have documented a list of requirements, and then the developers have then worked on those list of requirements, and then test cases were created for those requirements, and those were in turn used for testing the code which was developed by the tech team, and then those were validated and were included as part of the demo to be given to the stakeholders. Now, how do you ensure that the initial list of 20 odd requirements given are present in the final demo which was given to the stakeholders? For doing that, you need a proper traceability, which means nothing but the requirements given by the stakeholders should be mapped to the user stories which you have created, which should in turn be mapped to the tasks which the developers have picked to develop a piece of code, which should in turn be mapped to the test cases which were created and used by the QA team, quality assurance team, which should then be mapped to the validations that you have done. If you do this direct mapping between all of these intermediate requirements, documents that were created, what happens is the chances of having missed out any requirement will decrease considerably. So that is called as requirements traceability, and it becomes very much important in waterfall methodology because you know the time taken between requirements capturing and the final launch is huge, right? So there are higher chances of requirements getting missed out because some requirements get added in between, so those are documented but those not implemented, or implemented but not in the exact way. All these things happen. So traceability becomes important, and for that there is a specific document called as requirement traceability matrix, or RTM, that is created. You can also search about it a little more. uh, we'll see if we can capture that in one of the further videos, uh, so that we can spend some time on how it is done and all. Okay, so as I was telling you, it's not just enough to uh, get the information about requirements, but you should also be analyzing it. You should also be taking part in the prioritization process. You should also create a traceability of those requirements, and you should be able to effectively do the change management of requirements. Like whenever there are any changes being expected in a particular requirement which was provided initially, you should create some logs so that it is clearly called out that, oh, yes, agreed that initially we started with this requirement, but on so and so date this discussion happened over mail or in the discussion with the set of stakeholders which included this and this person, and this was the change that was expected, and this was later approved by this person, and then we have implemented this change. So that sort of change management also should be there in place. Of course, once all the requirements have been developed and tested, there should be proper validation and verification to be done. The terms verification and validation are used interchangeably most of the times, not just in IT projects, everywhere. But there is a key distinction between these two. I would I would I would suggest you guys to find that difference. Definitely, I'll definitely mention about that in the next video. Uh, but the point is, you should know the difference between verification and validation. It is more important from the testing perspective. Okay. If I have to just give you a gist, I'll say that verification is something about what is already uh, there, but validation is something else. So it's one is related to the business requirement, another one is related to how much of it is matching the business objective. More details about it later, but search for it and you find the difference. That will help you remember it better. Okay, so coming back, change management, then I spoke about the requirements verification and validation. After that is done, of course the final approval is required on the demo has been created or provided to the customers. Finally, let's assume that everything has been uh, designed, developed, tested, validated, and then provided. You have given a demo to the customers, they have agreed, and you have launched the app. After having done that, you need to have a little bit of a retrospective. Those who are already part of agile projects following Scrum framework, maybe already knowing what is sprint retrospective. If you're not aware, we will definitely touch upon what is agile, what are the ceremonies, and what is sprint retrospective event. All about that we'll cover later. But similar to that, this term requirements retrospective comes into picture, which is nothing but, okay, we have launched something and the customers are actually using all these features. Then you take a step back and you look at it, okay, from a third person's perspective. If I look at it, or from a user's perspective, if I look at it, uh, are these requirements really serving the purpose, or is there any requirement which is not really being utilized that much, and is there anything still missing out? This sort of retrospective will still help you, and sometimes you may do it after having received the feedback from the actual users. So all these things, as I said, right from inception or identification of requirements till the final point, the entire life cycle of this requirements, how do you manage that becomes your third knowledge area. I hope things are clear enough. Um, we will stop this video here and we'll get into the next knowledge area in the next video. Thanks everyone.